Good morning. Your Eminence, Archbishop Dimitrios, Your Eminence, as Metropolitan Alexios, Savas, Nicholas, Your Grace, clergy, Leadership 100 family. It is a privilege and joy to welcome you to the opening of our 24th Annual Leadership 100 Conference. Last year, we celebrated our 30th anniversary. Now we begin our fourth decade of service, cognizant as always to the many changes in our society, but always steadfast in the devotion to our faith and our heritage. Like many wonderful attractions of Orlando that draw families together, it is truly fitting that the Leadership 100 family also gathers here in this magical venue. The program this week reflects our complexity and diversity, but foremost, our members' pursuit of excellence in every field, whether charitable work, business, music, or medicine. Without doubt, Greek Americans and Greeks around the world continue to achieve great things. Today, we begin our program with a presentation by our own Constantine Dean Triantafilou, the Executive Director and CEO of International Orthodox Christian Charities, IOCC. Leadership 100 has been a proud supporter of this charitable arm of our Orthodox churches over the decades, and it reminds us of our primary mission, to serve our neighbor along with serving God. I turn to our chairman of our Grand Committee and member of our Board of Trustees, John Sitilidis, who also sits on the IOCC board, for the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's a genuine pleasure for me to be able to welcome to this conference my very good friend of many years, Dean Triantafilou, and his wife and son who are here with him to share in this honor and to help tell the story of IOCC very appropriately to an audience of Leadership 100 members, given that it was Leadership 100 that seeded IOCC in 1992. And we don't know where IOCC would have ever achieved or what it might have achieved if it wasn't for Leadership 100. And so I think all of us here can take enormous pride in launching this organization that, as Chairman Sendigos mentioned, is essentially the global philanthropic arm of the Orthodox Church. And those of us who will be able to attend liturgy this coming Sunday will hear the gospel reading of the parable of the Last Judgment. And it is here where Christ instructs us that the conduct of our lives towards the neediest among us, our fellow men, women, and children, embodies our conduct of love towards Christ himself. And in many ways, IOCC embodies this greatest message of Christ's love in how it offers assistance and help to the neediest around the world, not only to Orthodox Christians, but to all men and women and children without discrimination. And it's a key focus of our mission in that IOCC works with Orthodox Christian churches and networks in some of the roughest and nastiest places in the world, in South Asia, in the Middle East, in some of the most troublesome parts of Africa, in the Balkans, and as Dean will point out shortly when he's up here, also in a beleaguered Greek nation today that all of us know and care so deeply about. And much of IOCC's tremendous success over the last 15, 16 years, I would posit, is attributable to the leadership of Dean Triantafilou, who took a budding organization and has transformed it into a global humanitarian organization that currently has provided assistance to those in need, whether because of natural disasters or conflict, to those in greatest need in about 50 countries around the world, with total aid delivered exceeding $500 million. It's an enormous source of pride for us as Greek Orthodox and for all Orthodox Christians here in America and around the world. And before I turn the microphone over to Dean, I just want to offer one quick additional note in that with my work on Capitol Hill in Washington, I've been working with Dean to try to promote awareness of IOCC's work as an organization and on behalf of Orthodox Christians worldwide to lawmakers, many of whom do not know much about the Orthodox Christian faith nor about IOCC's humanitarian work. And one of the most exceptional stories that we're able to tell is what we're doing in one of the most God-forsaken places in the world, and that is in Syria. And we all know of the terrible, terrible news that we learn of regularly coming out of that place, that country. But what most people don't know, and I would presume most people in this room don't know, is the #1 organization in Syria providing assistance to those people who are suffering in ways that we cannot comprehend is IOCC. And this organization operates IOCC operates in 11 out of 14 provinces in Syria, and we are so effective in our work that the United Nations cannot access many of the places that IOCC operates within because we work under the Patriarchate of Antioch and are not involved in any of the political disputes in Syria. And so when the UN needs to get delivery of supplies and assistance to some of the toughest, nastiest parts of Syria, they subcontract out to IOCC. It's that kind of effective, exceptional work that makes us a very valued partner, both of the United States government and of international organizations that are looking to help those in greatest need in the most difficult parts of the world. It's an enormous accomplishment for this organization, for IOCC, and again, for me, being privileged to be both on the Board of Trustees of Leadership 100 and of IOCC, just a wonderful embodiment, again, of the parable of the Last Judgment, where what we seek to do for the neediest and most troubled of our fellow men and women is embodied in a very real and tangible way. And Leadership 100 should be very, very proud of our tight relationship with IOCC, our continued support, and the integration of our work on behalf of Orthodox Christianity in the United States and worldwide. And so with that, it's a genuine pleasure for me to be able to welcome and introduce my dear friend, the Executive Director of IOCC, Dean Triantafilou.
Good morning. Your Eminence, Archbishop Dimitrios, thank you for your gracious hospitality and for your visit to our Baltimore office this week. I know it meant a lot to all of us. Good morning to Chairman Sandikos and Ms. Poulos, Executive Director. Where are you? Paulette. Thank you for hosting my family and I here in Orlando this week. So last summer, we were on our annual family reunion vacation on Brigantine Island in New Jersey. And I was catching up on some reading that was sitting on the shelf. And I was reading Understanding Sun Tzu on the Art of War. And I flipped through the pages, and the first paragraph grabs me. I look over at my brother-in-law, Father Elias, and say, I'm going to use this next year at leadership. He says, go for it, man. So I share. Picture the rapids of a great river. See its waters rush over and around giant boulders. Close your eyes and listen to its roar. And feel its relentless power as it crashes over a precipice. Now picture that you remove a cup of water from anywhere in the river and sense how that water loses its power. It starts to dry up in the sun. Then empty that cup back into the river and know as part of the whole river that water wears rocks into sand. That water wears rocks into sand and does not dry up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 24th Annual Leadership 100 Conference, where each of y'all come together as individuals to form a powerful river, a powerful voice for people in need, for ministries of our church, for our faith, and for the world. We're here this week to recognize and learn from Dr. Eleni Antopoulou about her medical career and research efforts. We're here this week to recognize and learn from Mr. Michael Psados, who will share his business experiences with us. As my father's son, on behalf of my whole family, My deepest condolences to the entire Psados family for their tragic loss of the beloved West Virginia Mountaineers to the fighting Texas A&M Aggies at the Liberty Bowl football game 2 months ago. We're also here to learn more about IOCC and the work we do around the world under the leadership of His Eminence Archbishop DIMITRIOS as chair of the Assembly of Orthodox Bishops of America. In 1992, inspired by His Eminence Archbishop Jacobus of blessed memory, our founders John Rangus, Andy Athens, and Charles Agelat brought their various philanthropic efforts and visions to form one humanitarian relief development agency for all Orthodox Christians in America. Built on financial accountability and transparency, professional service to those who are suffering in need throughout the world, IOCC's early years focused on Orthodox countries emerging from communism and war. As we grew, so did our needs and our experience in leadership. Bert Moyer, George Marcus, Alex McChaskey, Mickey Holmesy brought strategic planning and fiscal discipline to help us not only survive, but to thrive through a steep learning curve of complex emergency response programs, managing annual external audits, international sanctions, complex reporting requirements to the U.S. and European governments. There are days when I'm tired and I feel pressure, but then the phone rings out of nowhere, and a voice on the other end with a big smile greets me. Dean, how's your cash? Mr. George Marcus is always there beside us. I believe our Pan-Orthodox board brings together some of the brightest and most experienced and committed Orthodox Christians in the world. Today we're blessed to have your John Sitilides, and recently Mark Stavropoulos was elected chair. Mark, like Bert, has traveled extensively to monitor projects overseas. How can you fail when you have so many giants coming together to form one powerful river, one force of compassion and love? Over the years, Leadership 100 has provided over $1 million of grants to IOCC for capacity building, emergency response, training of priests, volunteers, and youth. Leadership has played a critical role in our growth and in our history. I'll always remember the day in New Orleans, greeting the airplane, Archbishop Demetrius, and coming off to visit as far as the devastation of the hurricane. It was incredible to sit there in the warehouse and to watch him lead non-Orthodox in prayer. Later in the church, he presented a $100,000 check from leadership to support our work with the parishes in New Orleans. Thank you for being part of this incredible journey. So what is it that we actually do? Growing up into this day, people will ask me, you're going to be a priest like your father is, but I could never follow in his footsteps. From my perspective, his job is to save souls and mine's to feed them. We provide food, shelter, hygiene items, medical supplies in emergencies, and we rebuild lives through job creation, emergency preparedness, education, and health. We were built on emergency response. 22 years ago, my first job was commodities manager in Belgrade, was responsible to bring food in from overseas because of the sanctions, position it, and deploy it to Bosnia. We designed programs based on specific needs for specific people. Where does that funding come from? We maximize every dollar from individuals, parishes, foundations, organizations, governments, non-governments. As John said, U.S. Department of State, U.S. Department of Agriculture, U.S. Agency for International Development are all major partners through which we work. This past summer, we were blessed with a historic gift of $1 million unrestricted. And our theme from that point on was to take an historic gift for historic returns. In 2013 and 2014, we provided just over $100 million in program services throughout the world. This, ladies and gentlemen, demonstrates the power of working as one community with one goal through Christ, to follow Christ's teachings to help thy neighbor. So where do we work? Greece, is one of our major centers now. It's a bit of an emotional response for us, particularly for me. During the Bosnian conflict, we used to unload trucks literally every day from Greece. Truck after truck would come from Greece to Belgrade. We'd unload through the night, redeploy on other trucks to go into Bosnia. The Serbian people were overwhelmed with the generosity. And when I would go to Bosnia, back then I had curly hair, and I had my olive skin. I'd pull out my American passport, and the soldiers would obviously start giving me a hard time. But then when they'd see I was Greek, they'd give me a free pass. So that was part of the particular motivation we had as far as responding to the fires in 2007. Out of all that darkness, there was light and hope as we focused on helping the farmers and their livestock to rebuild. Then in 2012, I met with His Eminence Archbishop Hieronymus II to talk about how to respond to the economic crisis. He said something that stayed with me since. We need to help people with dignity and respect. Dignity and respect. So after the meeting, still dressed in a suit, we go to a soup kitchen downtown. And it was a mix. It was just, it's not a fancy place. It was just in the middle of the downtown area. You had Greeks, you had Arabs, you had Asians, some not dressed so nice, some dressed very well, most dressed very well. You had shady deals happening in the corner, you had separation. Usually I try to mix it up and sit and talk to people, but given the way I was dressed and the situation, I kind of sit in the back and kind of observed. And one gentleman started walking towards me, and I could tell something was off, whether it was alcohol or what have you, or just not all there. So I was kind of on guard, and then all of a sudden, his spanikogido, the rice and spinach, comes flying at my feet. And I don't know if it was directed at me. I don't know. It just happenstance that I was there. But all I could think about was dignity and respect. How do you help with dignity and respect? So in consultation with the agronomist in the Peloponnese and a grocery store chain owner, we started working on an idea that would allow people to purchase Greek produce from a debit card. From an IOCC perspective, being selfish, y'all are businessmen, eliminating all the logistics and warehousing of fresh produce for us was a win. Allowing people to go do their own shopping was another win. And thanks to a lot of encouragement and support from people like Mr. Rangus and others, Mr. Thomas, we started putting a pilot project together. Then the Jaharis Family Foundation stepped up big, $1 million challenge grant. This allowed us to expand, and with the support of the GOA, the HEPA, Philoptohus, the Hellenic Initiative, and others, we were able to match that grant. Not only bring in daily food, heating fuel, medical supplies, but giving people the chance to shop for Greek produce themselves with dignity and respect. We're pleased to announce this week that a second challenge grant has been issued by Mr. Jaharis, and we've accepted, and we've already raised half the money. Thanks for the support. Africa, Ethiopia has been our cornerstone. HIV/AIDS awareness with the Ethiopian Church. Now we've expanded into Uganda and Cameroon with health education programs and a new water initiative. On one of my trips a few years ago to Ethiopia, we were visiting a center in a remote village with 10 women who were with HIV/AIDS. And they had been getting small loans from IOCC to start businesses. So we go into this really dark, small room, and all the leaders, the community, they're all like jamming in there because they want to see what's going on. So they're on one side, and these women are lined up along the wall on this side, and extremely tense. Everyone's watching to see what's going to happen. The Faringi, the foreigners there. So we start to talk, and I try to get them to relax. What's your name? And then I kind of know a few words, and I'm hired to get them to laugh and relax. And so we're going through, and we get to the fourth or fifth person. And I ask her name, and she starts to talk. And then I kind of upped the ante, and she had been challenged by her landlord and was being forced to close her business. So I asked her, what are you going to do? What about your 4 kids? She starts to cry and responds, my children don't deserve this. At this point, I start to cry. The staff member who's with me starts to cry. The person next to her starts to cry. It was dead silent, as you can imagine, in that room. So I said, well, when's the last time you can say that you cried with a big Ferengi, a foreigner from Texas? So she smiled, and I said, you know, my dad always says, lift it up to God, and he will respond. I knew at that moment, no matter what we've done, the half billions, the whatever of the world, we've got that much more to do. Middle East. 10 years ago, we started with a $2,000 grant to rebuild a kitchen in Damascus. Slowly that built with State Department support for Iraq, refugees in Syria. We took our programs from Bosnia and Georgia and modeled those in Lebanon and Jordan and did a countrywide school lunch programs. We've expanded in Jerusalem, West Bank, Gaza, and Jordan. All of this while we're trying to navigate an extremely political environment. Last summer, I was in Lebanon and Jordan. The board discourages my travel to Syria at this point. So I was in this refugee camp. We've seen them on TV. 90,000 plus people jammed in a fence, tents, temporary shelters, common bathrooms, what have you. And we visited the clinic where we had dropped 10,000 head lice treatment. And the doctor was grateful and gracious and gave me the scoop. And this is about the time that ISIS had emerged. So this tension in the Middle East was higher than usual. So again, trying to keep a low profile, we're driving. This place is so big you have to have a map, right? And the doctor's driving us around. And we go up to the main street. And we're driving through the street, and there's shops, and it's busy, and it's moving. And I said, come on, man, stop the car. We got to walk. So we got out and walked. I couldn't resist. Why? Because the people there affectionately call that street the Champs-Élysées. So we're walking, and you're seeing all this buzz, and people buying, people are making do, And I'm thinking to myself, because I was going to be with the Assembly of Bishops the following week, how can I portray this? How can I tell them what I'm seeing? You're overwhelmed with sadness. You're overwhelmed with discouragement. How do you share that with your family or friends? I was confused, So I kept walking, and you see these kids playing. And you see the shop owner all proud to sell you a bottle of water. You see the doctor pushing, and the people are working together. And then you feel resilience. You feel faith, and you feel strength. My friends, the Middle East and the Syria conflict are by far the most complex, most challenging, most dramatic, most heart-wrenching response IOCC has dealt with in our history. We have a huge advantage because we have the Orthodox Church, and His Beatitude, Patriarch John, is welcoming and trusting us. The network is unmatched, and governments and people are willing to pay us to access that, and that's what we're doing. Currently, as John said, we've got over $30 million in open portfolio in Syria. We keep it low-key in order to protect our staff. Everything from emergency food, shelter, non-food, winter clothes, bedding, well digging, cash assistance for apartment rentals, and the distribution of 600 sweaters that were made by 34 Syrian women that we taught how to knit as part of a Cash for Work program. So how does all this get done? We've got 30 dedicated staff. 2 of them are here, Billy and Lou somewhere. There they are. And over 130 overseas. We've also got volunteers. And as of today, probably tomorrow, representatives of the Church of Our Savior will be dropping off 700 hygiene kits to our warehouse in New Windsor. And Leadership 100, Drake, is Drake here? George. Leadership 100 is announcing a day of service where they'll be putting kits together in 4 cities in March. So thank you very much. There are over 300 staff of the church that are also paid through by our grants. Many of them risk their lives on a daily basis, whether it's driving for countless hours through rough terrain, hostile environments, and negotiating their way through checkpoints. On Christmas before last, we, the church, lost 2 staff members to random shelling at a distribution center, leaving 4 children orphaned. I often get the question, how do you do it? How do you do so much travel, so much politics, so much pressure? Before I joined IOCC, I was in Penn Station, New York, and I picked up Backpacker magazine, and it had the 22 traits of great explorers. See, in college, I had read 22 of the 24 Tarzan books, and that's what had inspired me to go to Kenya to work for His Beatitude Archbishop Anastasios, now of Albania. So I read this Traits of Great Explorers. I thought, I can check off a lot of these. Smiler, planner, compassionate. Little did I know that when my dad told IOCC I would not be afraid to go to Bosnia, that other traits, such as carnivorous, lucky, funny, quote, makes everybody, including the guy holding the gun to his head, laugh, would literally be tested. Actually, some of y'all have noticed I don't have a beard, so now I can check off number 22, egotistical, because I shave it because now I got too much white on my chin. But the honest answer to how I handle pressure is that most of the time it comes naturally, because I have been blessed with a great support network, starting with my family, my parents, my sisters, my own courageous and loving family, Maya, Nick, and Anna. We have a great staff and we have a great board. There are times in this business when you get so scared, your heart's going to burst from your chest. Their silence is deafening, and everything in the world seems to be moving in slow motion. It's at those times that I turn to my spiritual heroes, like His Eminence, like His Holiness Patriarch Pavle. Follow your heart, and God will give you the answer. His Holiness Patriarch Pavlos, loving people is loving God. A few years ago, I was heading into Syria with our chairman at the time, Mickey Holmesy of Oklahoma City. The war had already started, and we were just going to Damascus for the day from Beirut to meet His Beatitude Patriarch Ignatius to discuss the relief efforts, have lunch, and get back to Beirut. It's a lot different when you're by yourself and you're doing something risky, or some people would say stupid. But when you're responsible for someone else, and particularly that's your boss, it gets pretty scary, So the night before, I was in a panic. And I called home, and just like my father had said one night when I was struggling, the last night I had to smuggle money from Athens to Belgrade. Another story, another day. My wife says, you've done this 1,000 times. Say a prayer, do it, and come home. So I put on my iPod, and I cranked up, yes, Eminem, the rap song, I'm Not Afraid. I relaxed, and I was ready to go to sleep, and I turned to D. Papastolu's symphonic Orthodox liturgy that I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times on planes throughout the night, throughout the world. John 17, 11-26, which is being read by His Eminence Archbishop Yakovos in Greek. Some of you know that my Greek's not so great. I can read it a little bit. I can order some food, get myself in trouble, but that's about it. So you may have assumed that I looked it up all those hundreds and hundreds of times I listened to it to understand what His Eminence was reading. Truth be told, no. Never. In the last 5 or 6 years, not until last week did I have a clue what he was reading until I started preparing for this week. Every time I turn it on, I hear peace. I hear comfort. I hear love. I hear compassion. I hear togetherness in His voice. And the words calm me. They give me strength. They give me peace. There's one phrase that locks me in and rocks me every time. Ego proserchome. I come to you. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a theologian. I'm a field guy in a suit. I didn't know what it meant in Greek, but I knew His Eminence was leading me to God and protecting me from evil. The world has changed since 9/11. Everything we know has changed. Our kids will never know what it's like to meet Yaya Papu at the airport. They won't get on an airplane without getting searched. We'll think twice about where we go on vacation without checking the State Department travel advisories. I talked earlier about risk to the staff. We learned our lessons the hard way. When I took over as interim director in 1997, we had 2 employees being held hostage in Chechnya. After a lot of hard work and prayer, both were released after 6 months of captivity and the other 11. So when staff go in harm's way, I'm always alert, questioning whether or not its mission-critical value is being added by taking the risk. In order to focus my attention, not to lose touch with reality, because there are those in this business who get immune. They accept accidents. They see something as inevitable. I forced myself to watch the hostage killings by ISIS, including the most recent, as far as the Jordanian pilot being burned. It is as horrific as it sounds. All I could do was pray for him and pray for his family. I apologize in advance for going beyond the boundaries of IOCC for a minute. Wherever you've embarked on your own journey, leading many to come together as a powerful river, as a powerful force, to be a beacon of hope, love, and strength for the world to see. St. Nicholas Shrine at Ground Zero will be that and more for people of all races, of all faiths, to seek comfort, to seek love, and to seek peace. As I shared at the Assembly of Bishops a few months back, poverty, hunger, torture, death, they don't know jurisdictions. They don't know races. They don't know boundaries. They hurt everyone. Mr. Rangas always tells me, put your hands on the table, your fingers exposed, and someone's going to come by and step on them and break every single one. Clasp them together, bonded by faith and love, and they can't be broken. Ladies and gentlemen of the Archbishop Jacobus Leadership 100 Foundation, on behalf of the staff, board of directors, the people we serve, I thank you for all you've done for IOCC. On behalf of my father, I thank you for all you've done for Hellenic College and Holy Cross Seminary. I thank you for all the help you've done for other Orthodox ministries as well. I challenge you today to come together as one powerful river, one powerful force, capable of turning rocks into sand, lifting up our faith, protecting those who need it, making the world a better place. Kego proserchome, pateragi, tidisun aftus entonomasu, o dedukasmi, in osinen kathosi mis. I come to you, Holy Father, keep to your name those who you have given me, that they may be one as we are. Amen.